Greetings, and happy to be here and to spend these next meditation together. And as an introduction, I'd like to say that there's an aphorism in our insight meditation scene that says that vipassana is not about seeing something new, but seeing in a new way. And we could adapt this saying that this practice is not about feeling something new, it's feeling in a new way. It's not about thinking something new, maybe, but maybe thinking in a new way. It's not about experiencing something new, but experiencing in a new way. And so, saying this in these different kinds of ways points us back to the ways in which how we are with our experience, how we are with what's happening. Because always there's two things happening. There's what's happening and how we're relating to it, the attitude in which we are present for it, the way we attend to it. And vipassana has a lot to do about the latter. It is about also seeing clearly what's there, but how we see is really the key. And so while we're paying attention to breathing, for example, or anything at all, we want to have a careful attention, really attend to things carefully. But that part of that caring carefully, attending carefully, is in fact part of the how we're attending differently, is in fact how we begin seeing in a new way. And so that's the question you can carry with you if you'd like for this sitting. That as you attend to anything, how are you with it? How do you see it? How are you aware of it? And if the mind wanders off and you notice that, how are you aware of that? It's not about anything being different, but changing the how. So are you striving? Are you pulling away? Are you angry or aversive? Do you have strong desires for something being different? How are you? And in that how, can you find a how that's nice, that's meaningful, that's nourishing, that is a comfortable place to be? Perhaps a sense of being content with what is, a certain kind of content. So I'll talk more about that this week. So taking a meditation posture, and gently closing your eyes, and perhaps with this being the beginning of the week, you can just directly and simply check in with yourself. How are you in your body? Spending a little time exploring the body's experience of itself in the different places of the body that maybe normally you don't attend to much. The back, the shoulders, the belly, the chest, the face. Experimenting with how you attend. Can you be aware of your body in a relaxed way? Unhurried. And how are you in your mind? in your thinking, in your attitude, your dispositions. How are you in the mind? And as you notice your inner life of the mind, also notice how you're aware. Is there any judgment or reactivity or expectations? Can your awareness of your mind be simple? Maybe almost like you're kindly gazing upon another person. So you don't take it personally what the mind does, but you do know it. And how are you in your heart? How are you with your feelings and emotions? Can you allow them to be as they are? Just to know them in a new way. Perhaps know them kindly, non-reactively. Again, almost as if you're kindly looking at another person for whom you have nothing at stake and nothing you can do except be kind. You look at your own feelings in a kind way, calmly, unhurriedly, allowingly. And then within this whole being of body, mind, and heart, to take 2, 3 deeper breaths. And as you exhale, settle in, relax into your being, into where you feel inner stability. Maybe a sense of ground or firmness. And become aware of the body breathing. And here too, with your breathing, gently seeing if you could be aware in a new way, meaning in a way that is not dependent on what happens to your breathing or how your breathing is. It's simply dependent on the openness, the simplicity, the ease in which you are aware. One breath at a time. opening the curtains of the mind wide enough so you notice when your mind drifts off in thought. Sometimes even staying with the breathing, the mind can still be involved in thinking in a way that compromises the clarity of awareness. And if that's the case, clearly know you're thinking. And then begin with the breathing again, clearly knowing, breathing. And the new way of seeing, of experiencing, has a lot to do with not making anything a problem for awareness. Just to be aware is enough. As we come to the end of this sitting, perhaps you can imagine yourself sitting here. What would it be like if you were sitting with as much peace or ease as you've ever experienced in your life? As much calm or contentment as you've ever had? Imagine you're sitting here with your mind untroubled, your heart untroubled, in the way that it's been least troubled that you can remember. Your thoughts perhaps most simple and easy and maybe even peaceful. Maybe remembering such a time. And imagine that you're sitting that way now, what it would feel like and be. And imagine from this perspective what it would be like to gaze kindly, openly on the people that you'll encounter today. Maybe with the idea that for now nothing is needed of you. Don't need to say anything or do anything. But you have the opportunity to just be present for people from this place of peace or calm or contentment, happiness. And as you have this reference point, are there any desires that might come up in relationship to these people that support you to be peaceful, or that cause some of the peace to diminish? Any wantings, wanting things to be different, expectations? And when you think of these desires you might have, what effect does it have on your peaceful awareness, your calm awareness? Does it stay calm and peaceful, or does it get diminished or agitated? Or does it get more peaceful? And if strong desires come up for something to be or not to be, maybe with the intensity of desires that you have when they're strong, what happens to that peace and calm? And then taking a deep breath or two, and as you exhale, letting go of all this imagination, coming back into the present moment here. And from whatever degree of calm or peace that you have, to look out into the future of the day, looking kindly on all people that you'll encounter or talk to or think about. And perhaps you can relate to them in a new way. Perhaps you can relate to them kindly and friendly. And perhaps with whatever generosity you have, to extend your support and care to the people you know, the people you run into, and to live this day with a kind regard for all beings. With a generous caring for all beings. Letting go of the opposite. Letting go of any way you are relating to others that diminishes you. And may it be that coming out of this meditation, all of us, that we live for the welfare and happiness for all beings everywhere. May it be that all beings are happy. May it be that all beings are free of oppression. Let it be that all beings are free of bias, discrimination. May it be that all beings have the opportunity to feel respected, cared for, and at peace. Again, greetings. So for this week, the theme of these morning talks is going to be the roots, the 3 unwholesome roots and the 3 wholesome roots. In that sense, it continues the topic of last week, where I looked at the ethics from the point of view of the Buddha, early Buddhist ethics. And I wanted to begin with, well, first I'll maybe say, for those of you who are new, what we're talking about here is that one of the closest approximation to the English word ethics in the teachings of the Buddha is the word that's translated either as wholesome or as skillful. And it's very quickly, if those are the words that are closest to our English word ethics, maybe that suggests that it has a very different, we're talking about something somewhat different, a different species of human concern than what we often think about by the English word ethics. It's still concerned with the same domain in the area of human life and how we relate to each other and behave in relationship to each other. But perhaps it has a different orientation than many times comes along with the word ethics, where that can have a little bit of a sense of burden and obligation and the authority of some absolute commandments or something. But to do what's skillful or wholesome has a very different feeling. And the Buddha taught that there are 3 roots to all unwholesome, unskillful behavior. In English we might say all unethical behavior. And those 3 roots are greed, hatred, and delusion. And it's a phenomenal teaching that that everything unethical has these roots. All wholesome things have as their roots non-greed, non-hate, and non-delusion, which I'll talk about more later. And now these three roots for the unwholesome are sometimes also called the three fires. And what's interesting about a fire is that it burns the fuel that it depends on, the fuel that is burning. And so, the same way, these three unwholesome, unskillful tendencies that humans have, greed, hate, and delusion, are kind of a fire that we can have that hurts, that burns up, that exhausts the source that they're burning on, what they're depending on, us, ourselves. And so the Buddha said that these forces are self-harming forces within us. And so he puts a lot of emphasis on seeing, understanding greed, hate, and delusion, and becoming free of it. In fact, it's probably one of the most common ways the Buddha talks about awakening, as the destruction of greed, hate, and delusion. And as I said last week, it's very easy to start glassing over, ignoring kind of when Buddhist teachers keep saying greed, hate, and delusion, because it's so repetitive and we get habituated to it, and so here we go again. But the repetition of this emphasis points to how important they are. It's kind of like you go to architecture school and the teachers keep talking about how important the foundation of a building is. And after a while you say, oh, they keep talking about foundations. And so we ignore it. And then we don't learn about the foundations, what we need to keep the building safe and upright. So it's more like that. This is a foundation, these things to look at. And to give you a sense of how important this is in the early Buddhist tradition and kind of fascinating ways in which it's referred back to, a person came to Ananda, the Buddha's one of the Buddha's main disciples, who was with him for many years and really knew all his teachings well. And the person belonged to a different religion and came and wanted to ask the Nanda, whose Dhamma is well proclaimed? Whose teaching is well proclaimed? Who in this world are the ones practicing the good way? Who in the world are the fortunate ones? So I guess he's kind of a test. There's all these different religions in the time of the Buddha in his area, and he wants to know who has the best thing, the best religion, the best teachings, who are practicing the good way, living that good life the best way, and who are the fortunate ones. Now in Buddha's answer, he makes no explicit reference to Buddhism, or tries to champion Buddha and say, well, we have it here in our dispensation, in our religion. We have the best teachings. We have the people who are practicing the right way. We have the people who are fortunate enough to attain the goal of the practice. Instead, what he says is this: the teaching of those who teach abandoning greed, hatred, and delusion is well proclaimed. So the reference point for the teachings that are well proclaimed is not so-called religious teachings, but the reference point is in ourselves in the terms of greed, hate, and delusion, something human beings have. So the teaching of those who teach abandoning greed, hate, and delusion is well proclaimed. Those practicing for the abandonment of greed, hate, and delusion are practicing the good way. Those who abandon and obliterated greed, hate, and delusion are the fortunate ones. So in these answers, there's no metaphysical, supernatural, philosophical, or existential claim about the Buddhist religion or what's important. And there's no claim of what is ultimate truth, which is what religions often do. For many people, this answer that the Ananda gave is not particularly controversial, maybe. I mean, it's the value of not having greed, hate, and delusion. For many people, seems good. Ananda, I would like to say that Ananda is pointing to basic concerns of mental health, well-being, inner goodness. And even if there is an ultimate truth that's different than the ending of greed, hate, and delusion, even though there might be some great religious experience that's greater and more wonderful than the destruction of greed, hate, and delusion, still, the destruction of greed, hate, and delusion should be appreciated, is valuable. What good is an ultimate religious experience or ultimate truth if a person still is filled with greed, hate, and delusion? From the Buddhist point of view, become free of greed, hate, and delusion. And then maybe we don't have to talk about the ultimate truth so much. Maybe we don't have to get caught up in religious truth so much. If we're free of greed, hate, and delusion, this is a synonym to the Buddhist idea that that the goal of practice is to end suffering. But the common teaching that the Buddha was teaching, the end of suffering, the cessation of suffering, has no obvious ethical quality to it. In fact, it could lend itself to the idea: just go someplace in your little cave and meditate and be free of suffering, and forget about the world. The ending of greed, hate, and delusion are very much having to do with clearly about our relationship to the world. We have greed about things in the world. We have hatred towards things, often greed and hatred towards people, and delusions to people. And so when the Buddha over and over again emphasized the destruction of greed, hate, and delusion, it's not just that this is the well-proclaimed teaching, not that this is, a good idea. It's really about how we live in the world in a better way. In English, we would say it's an ethical teaching, but not the ethics of rules, but the ethics of a personal transformation where we're no longer being driven by greed, hatred, and delusion. So these three terms, greed, hatred, and delusion, can be seen as umbrella terms for a wide array of emotions. It's kind of like three families of different motivations that we have. And I'll just read you a small list of these that the Buddhist tradition gives, some of the commentaries give. That greed includes things like lust, longing, attachment, clinging, craving, relishing, being avaricious, expectation. It's a whole long list, and you can probably come up with a much, much longer list if you take greed is to be involved not just intensity greed, because it's a strong word, even the smallest little movements of greed. And maybe I'm running out of time, so I won't read the other ones today. But I want to say that greed, one of the ways it's characterized is any place that it's sticky. It's any place where desire we get sticky with desire. We get caught in it. It's sticky like the sap of a tree. You put your hand on it, it's really sticky, is the metaphor that's used. And based on what I said in the meditation today, greed always diminishes us. Greed always narrows us or harms us, it burns us. Even the smallest little form of, excessive desire, contracted desire, or sticky desire. And that is a fascinating reference point. To be mindful enough and clear enough to notice and see that stickiness, to see how greed diminishes us. That is an exploration. So you might want to look at that through the day and Don't make up desires, clingings, cravings, greed for the purpose of this exercise. But as you go through your day, if it just happens, maybe accidentally you have some greed, then maybe stop and take a good look at it and see if you can see what I'm talking about. That the presence of greed is a kind of suffering. Presence of greed is a kind of diminishment of who we are. And if it is, what's the opposite? What's happiness? What is it that's enhancing us? It makes us more expansive or something. So thank you. So I'll go into this a little bit more as we go through the week, and I hope that this week is wonderful for you, and I hope your study of greed will help support you understand and value when I talk about non-greed. Thank you.